Good evening. Welcome to Legacy Battle Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the Facebook group. The more members, the better. And we're always looking for sponsors. Brian back there's got that empty space. He'll put your info up there. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. With me tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. From the Sunshine State Sports Jabber Podcast and the Walker Report, Bradley Walker. And of course, Kevin Adams. We're joined by a special guest tonight, and we're really happy to have him because who better to talk baseball than a former baseball player. He played 11 years in the major leagues with the Dodgers, Pirates, Braves, and Astros. In 1986, he set the major league record for assists by a first baseman. He's played in 2 World Series with the Atlanta Braves. And of course, he's remembered for the picture behind me, the slide heard around the world in 1992, Game 7 of the National League Classic Series to beat the Pirates, put the Braves into the World Series. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sid Bream. Thank you for being here, Sid.
Thank you. Let me give you a little bit of a roll hat. There you go.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. And we got to have that famous image up. I mean, that's one of the most famous things in baseball. So.
The grimmest scene around the world. I mean, as I was sliding in with all my bad knees.
It ruined my childhood for Pittsburgh Pirate baseball.
Believe me, living in Pittsburgh, I've heard that too many times.
So after the debate tonight, we're gonna have a little Q&A with Sid about his career. Tonight's debate, we're doing a show that we like to do here on Legacy Battle called the Mount Rushmore. Tonight's is the second Mount Rushmore of the New York Yankees. We kind of all came to an agreement that the first Mount Rushmore is Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. Hard to knock those guys off their pedestals. So we're gonna be debating the second Mount Rushmore. Each of us is representing 2 that was randomly selected out of a hat. So there's no bias put into it that way. And the order tonight was also selected out of a hat before the show. So we're going to start tonight with Derek Jeter.
All right. Well, what can you say about Derek Jeter? 20 years with the Yankees. He led the major leagues in runs once, hits twice. He went over that threshold that all players want to go over, that 3,000 career hits. He was the 28th player to ever do that. He ended up with a .310 career batting average. He won the Rookie of the Year in 1996, and he was a 14-time All-Star. When he became eligible for the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame voters went to vote, 396 out of 397 of the voters voted for him, and that is the second highest percentage in the history of the Hall of Fame. He was a really great fielding shortstop. He won the Gold Glove 5 times. Particularly, I remember one play against Oakland A's when he went to the third base, side in foul territory and caught a ball. The wall there was only about 2-3 foot high. It caused him to tumble, and he went headfirst into the stands. And he still was able to maintain the ball. He stood up and was able to throw the ball to second base, to contend a runner at second base. So I mean, he was just one heck of a fielder. He is the all-time Yankees leader in hits, doubles, stolen bases, and games played. There's never been anybody that's put on that Yankee uniform more times than him. He has a .321 batting average in the World Series, and he was known as Mr. November. Nowadays, he's part owner of Miami Marlins. He's doing some work down there trying to build that franchise. And you can't mention Jeter without talking about his dating life. I mean, the way he was off the field. I mean, just this amazingly beautiful woman. You have Mariah Carey, Vita Guerrera, Jordana Brewster, Jessica Biel, Minka Kelly, and now he's with Hannah Davis, who he has a child with. So he batted pretty well there in that regard as well. So, but yeah, I mean, Derek Jeter, one of the top Yankees of all time, in my opinion.
No doubt. Sid, I want to ask you, do you think there was a better leader player during the late 90s, early 2000s than Derek Jeter?
He has been such a great ambassador for the game. His leadership on the Yankees ball team was unparalleled. I mean, and you know, as the stats shared right there, I mean, he is, you know, not only should be on Mount Rushmore, he could be on Mount Rushmore 1 too. You know, he is truly the epitome of a great shortstop. Everything that you could ever ask for, not only with his fielding, his throwing, but also with his hitting, his leadership. He is, he, in my opinion, he would be number one on Mount Rushmore too, for sure.
You know, and it's hard to find negatives about any of these guys tonight, but that's ultimately the goal of us who aren't representing Jeter, is to not get him on because we want our guys on. But I mean, with Jeter, I'll say this: he's actually my favorite player of all time. However, he did refuse to move from.
Let me just say this, Michael. The
Yeah.
only thing that I would say there is I'm not a big Yankees fan. But other than that, Derek Jeter, great ball player.
Absolutely. But yeah. So my knock on him, so to speak, is he did refuse to move from shortstop in his later years when his fielding was just absolutely atrocious. A-Rod should have probably been playing shortstop. Now, granted, him and A-Rod, from what we are told, didn't get along very well. But you know, that's. I mean, it was Derek Jeter, though. Should he really move from shortstop? But that, and you know, he never really, you know, commented or condemned the steroid usage of A-Rod and Giambi. You know, as the leader of baseball, he could have stepped up. I thought a little more on that. Kevin or Brad, do you guys want to add anything on Jeter?
He's my favorite Yankee, and I'm a fan of the enemy of the Yankees. So yeah, he's my favorite Yankee.
You know, Jeter, his final game, I mean, he had the storybook ending. You know, 2 outs, he hit that walk-off single to score the game-winning run in his final game. I mean, that's perfect ending for a great career, for a great player. But, you know, and you did bring up the feuds with A-Rod. I mean, two of the biggest stars on a team having a feud back and forth, going on, and it's not good for the locker room. But you know, that's his leadership. Like, he should have nipped that in the butt. A-Rod should have. They're both guilty, but that shouldn't be going on in the locker room, having a feud back and forth. And it wasn't just a short thing. But just like you guys, I love Jeter, and to have that storybook ending, that was just the perfect ending to his career. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's like your hopes and dreams is, you know, winning the game, you know, on the last hit on walk-off fashion to retire. I mean, going off into the sunset.
Well, and that was actually his last home game.
Home game, yeah.
Last he went and played in Boston.
In front of his home crowd.
Right. He did end with a hit in Boston. He walked off with a hit in Boston too. Just wasn't a game-winning hit, but yeah.
Just understand this. I mean, in the locker room, I don't care what team you're on. I mean, you're a family, and tell me what families don't have disagreements and arguments. And you know, yes, you could go back and forth, but you could also say that you know, that you talk about him, but at the same time, why didn't the other one just be somebody? And I can't even think of his name right now. And I apologize. A-Rod.
Yeah.
Why didn't he just submit? I mean, and just say, hey, for the better of the team, you know, I will take third base, and you know, Derek can stay at shortstop, and everything could have been resolved that way too. So you can put it on Derek, but you can also put it on A-Rod. As big of a name as he was, he could have been able to just say, hey, let's let this happen the way it is. Let's not cause a big feud on the team, and let's get playing the game of baseball. But every team had their struggles. Every team had their opportunities to have their little quarrels and debates and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I don't really see a whole lot in that.
All right, let's move on to Reggie Jackson.
Yep, that's me.
That's okay. I couldn't remember.
So yeah, so you know, Reggie Jackson, man, he's a power hitter. He definitely he had a bat. You know, he played 21 seasons in the major leagues. 4 years with the Yankees. He also split time with Kansas City, Oakland, and Baltimore. and California Angels. But he did get inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1993. And I'm sure Jeter will follow, obviously. But Jackson got his nickname from a Yankees teammate, Mr. October. Why did he get that name, Mr. October? Because the man was clutch. The man was clutch in big games, in the playoffs, in October. He hit 3 home runs in a World Series Game 6 for the Yankees to clinch the series. He reached postseason 11 times. He helped win 6 pennants, 5 World Series wins. He won both regular season and World Series MVP in 73. He hit over 500 home runs. He had 563, which was 6th all time when he did retire. He maintained a .490 slugger percentage. He was named to 14 All-Star games. He won 2 Silver Slugger awards, AL Most Valuable Player, 2 World Series MVPs. He got the Babe Ruth Award in 77. He is one of only 10 players to actually have their jersey number retired by 2 different teams. He had his jersey retired by the Yanks in 93 and then the A's in 2004. And he's one of only 4 to have different numbers retired by 2 MLB teams. Now, when he went to the Yankees, he wanted his number, but it was already taken. Then he tried to get another number, and another player had it, and he actually picked 44, or he wanted 42 for Jackie Robinson, but that was taken. He ended up with 44. But in 1999, he was placed 48th on the Sporting News 100 greatest players baseball list. And he had a quote that he had mentioned, I feel the most important requirement in success is learning to overcome failure. And you must learn to tolerate it, but never accept it. And I think that kind of helped him. I know he had some struggles at the plate at times, but, he didn't let it bother him. And the man was clutch. He hit home runs, one of the best home run hitters back in when he was playing. And he had his jersey retired by 2 teams, and he made the Hall of Fame.
Sid, do you think that he played 5 years for the Yankees? You think that's too short of a time for him to be considered on their Mount Rushmore?
I mean, that's going to be up to you guys. I mean, shoot, you gotta consider his whole career. And the only thing I would say about Reggie is, yes, he had tremendous stats, but to my knowledge, what I've always heard is he was a negative in the clubhouse, and that to me takes away a lot of his stats when it's all about him and not about the team.
Agreed. And hey, let us not forget he tried to kill the Queen of England in the Naked Gun. So,
Good point.
so if he's trying to kill the Queen of England, he could be a negative impact there. Brian or Brad, anything you want to add about Reggie?
Didn't he hit 4 straight home runs in a World Series game? Wasn't he the only player that's ever done that? Yeah. Am I right or wrong?
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. When he hit 3 in the Game 6 clinching.
Okay, that was 3. Okay, that's what.
Yeah.
Brian, anything you want to add? Oh, I think Brian's froze. So
Yeah, I believe you're right. Is that he struck out a lot. I mean,
nope. He's going in and out there, Brian. So I'll just add this about Reggie Jackson. Bleacher Report voted him in the top 13 biggest jerks in baseball history.
that was one of the.
So, all right, you back, Brian?
Yeah, I think I'm back now. You hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I was just going to say that one of the things about Reggie Jackson is that he struggled a lot of times with strikeouts. So a lot of times he actually led the majors in strikeouts. So.
Oh wow, he goes out again.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So
with all that, Michael, I mean, shoot, today nobody would be considered for Mount Rushmore because all the home run hitters strike out so much. They could care less about putting bat on the ball unless they hit a home run.
That was one negative.
But to your point earlier, Sid, about his negativity, I know he belittled the team captain, somebody we're going to talk about later, Thurman Munson, quite a bit, and that caused a lot of friction in the clubhouse back in the day. So, well, while Brian's figuring that out, we're going to move on to our next player, and that actually is Thurman Munson.
All right, guys. Thurman Munson spent all 11 years of his career with the New York Yankees, having a .292 batting average. He won 2 World Series in 1977 and 78. He was named the team captain the first since Lou Gehrig. He was considered the heart and soul of the Yankees. They did retire his number 15, and in fact, his locker is still there in the new Yankee Stadium that they built. He did die in a plane crash that saddened a lot of Yankee fans. Actually, a lot of sports fans in general, not so much just Yankee fans. Just an overall great guy. Like I said, a heart and soul of a team. That's a pretty big honor to have, especially for the New York Yankees, one of the premier baseball teams in all the majors. So I would say Thurman was a great ball player for the Yankees.
A lot of topics that come up on this show often is what if. You know, Thurman Munson's kind of the big what if. He was being compared to Johnny Bench quite a bit when they were going. You know, Johnny was in the National League, of course, but Thurman was in the American League. There's really nothing bad to say about Thurman Munson. You know, God rest his soul, of course. But I know, he died probably just a little bit before you came into the majors, right, Sid?
Yes, he was gone. I mean, I remember watching him quite a bit as a ball player. And again, I think stats wise, yes. I mean, he was a pretty good ball player, hitter, but stats wise, really doesn't measure up a whole lot for me. The big thing for me is he was a great leader, and there was no negative to Thurman. He was somebody that you could count on day in and day out. And for that purpose, I mean, he could get some votes for this Mount Rushmore.
I've got his rookie card packed away. Unfortunately, it was the year Topps did the black siding, and it's really hard to keep those cards in good shape. But Brian, anything, or Kevin, anything you guys want to add on Thurman Munson? It looks like Brian's froze again down there. Kevin, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. So I mean, it's a shame that he died early. Plane crash. We lost another great in Pittsburgh to a plane crash. Roberto Clemente. But Thurman Munson, I mean, he had his jersey retired. It was pretty much immediately after his death. They paid tribute to the cap. He was the captain, and they paid tribute before the start of a 4-game series in Baltimore in the Bronx, or against Baltimore in the Bronx. Like you said, what if? Like if he got to play out his whole career, would he have been as good as Yogi Berra? I mean, Dickey, would he have had better stats than them? I mean, he was definitely a good player. I mean, they retired his jersey for a reason. So just a shame that we lost him too soon.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Don Mattingly. Donnie Baseball. I got this one. If you're a Yankee and you want to be on the Mount Rushmore, you got to have a nickname. And Donnie Baseball was right up there with Fernando Mania. I mean, he was pretty huge there for a while. Career .307 hitter. That's pretty good. He won an MVP. He was also runner-up for an MVP. He's got 9 Gold Gloves. One of the best fielding first basemen of all time. 3 Silver Slugger awards, batting average title, RBI title. Led the league in doubles 3 times. He homered in 8 consecutive games, and that's a record tied with Ken Griffey Jr. And he also has the record for 6 Grand Slams in a season. His plaque in famed Yankee Monument Park, this is a really great what they have on his plaque. It says, "A humble man of grace and dignity, a captain who led by example, proud of the pinstripe tradition, and dedicated to the pursuit of excellence, a Yankee forever." I mean, that's some beautiful words about a player. And Mattingly, he's got charities out there. He's helped underprivileged youth. George Brett said that Don Mattingly was the best player in the game during the 80s. A combination of pure hitting, power, and amazing fielding. He went on to become a a hitting coach for the Yankees after he had retired, and players credited him for the record-breaking 242 homers that they hit in 2004. Obviously, the Yankees retired his number, and just some stuff for off the field. He was a guest on The Simpsons, so it's gets his name out there, and he's also famous. Check this out. Famous for his 100% cotton pants that split in a game, all because of George Costanza. So, if you've seen that Seinfeld episode. Brian, so while you're actually, you're up for the minute, what do you got on Mattingly?
Well, I mean, you said it, it's just the leadership aspect of Mattingly. It was just amazing, and we saw that throughout his career, and then even whenever he became a manager.
Yeah. So, Sid, you played first base. I'm sure this one holds special meaning for you. What can you tell us about Don Mattingly?
I mean, again, a class act. I mean, as you shared that, not epitaph, but I mean, those words that were on that plaque out there, held true big time with him. He was a clutch hitter, tremendous fielder, and he was a great leader on the team. And again, just a quality person, great ambassador, and you got to give him a lot of kudos.
All right, so let's move on to.
I want to jump in real quick. So,
go ahead.
unfortunately, I think Mattingly is another what if, because he had injuries that shortened his career. His stats, I mean, they haven't been able to get him into the Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer. Could he have been? Probably. But he hasn't. He's been eligible, I think, since 2001, and he hasn't gotten enough votes to get in. And we're 19 years now that he hasn't been able to get in. But unfortunately, I think it's because of injuries. Injuries definitely plagued his productivity and his career.
Okay. All right. So next up, Mariano Rivera.
All right, cue up that Metallica Enter Sandman. Mariano Rivera, 19 seasons with the Yankees. Most saves in Major League Baseball history with 652. That's 51 more than Trevor Hoffman, who's in second place. He led the majors in saves 3 times, and he had over 40 saves 9 times. They put together this stat called ERA plus, which adjusts the players' statistics based on the ballpark that they played in. And Rivera is the all-time leader in that metric as well. He was part of 5 World Series teams, and he pitched in every deciding game of those series, all 5 of those series. Now, in 2012, he had a freak injury where he was shagging fly balls in batting practice, and he ended up tearing his knee up, and he had to. That was it for his season. And when they interviewed him, he was just really broken, and he was thinking that maybe he was never going to play again. He said, "I really don't know if I'm ever going to play again." But he battled back. In 2013, he decided that was going to be his final season. That was going to be his farewell tour. He has 44 saves in that season, a 2.11 ERA, and he ended up being the comeback player of the year. During that retirement tour, he received so much respect around the league. Countless places, everywhere he would go, and they knew it was his last place playing there. They were giving him gifts. They were donating to his charity. They went on to during the All-Star game, they had all the players came out from the dugouts of both teams, and they all gave him an ovation all at once. And then they even had in the last game at Yankee Stadium, they actually had Metallica come there live to play the Enter Sandman song when he came out. I mean, here is one of the probably the greatest heavy metal band of all time, one of the most well-known bands there ever was, and they thought well enough of him to come out and to do that. So, and then another aspect of his greatness is, sort of on an international scale, he's done a tons of work with charity work for his home country of Panama. And he's probably the most popular and most successful Panamanian athlete that there's ever been, probably since at least Roberto Duran back in the 70s and 80s. So just a tremendous character on and off the field. I mean, just one thing you knew is when he was coming out of that dugout, he was probably going to save the game for the Yankees. I mean, he was that good. He was intimidating, and he had possibly the best cutter of any pitcher that maybe has ever played.
Sid, bottom of the ninth, 1-run lead. Was there ever a pitcher you would want more on the mound than Mariano Rivera?
No, I mean, and the thing about Mariano, he was so dominant as a closer for so many years. I mean, you think of too many players, too many closers. They're there for, a couple years, several years, but then they lose their effectiveness, and they're brushed down to the number 2 setup guy or the one before that. And Mariano was just phenomenal for all his time, as far as up in that thing, except for that injury aspect of it all. And as Brian said, I mean, just a tremendous character guy. I mean, and man of integrity, just a super individual. And, I mean, again, one that I would very, very much think should be on Mount Rushmore.
He's a good Christian man and does a lot to help out the world. Absolutely. Brad, was his cutter the best pitch in baseball?
Yeah, by far. I mean, again, being a fan of the Boston Red Sox, we, used to hate Rivera coming in, except for 2004. But I won't go there. But anyway, no, Mariano was my second favorite Yankee behind Jeter. I mean, there's 2 guys that I would label as a true baseball players, the guys that were there every day. I know Jeter had a little bit of run-in with A-Rod and stuff like that. Rivera never really had that issue. 2 great individuals, and Mariano was one of the best, if not the best closer ever in Major League Baseball.
I mean, and Michael, let me just add this. I mean, you're asking about his cutter. The great thing about Mariano's cutter is he didn't just throw it in one place. I mean, he could, he would throw the cutter in on a lefty's hands, but he could also backdoor that cutter. Most guys throw the cutter one way, and they don't have consistency if they want to backdoor backdoor on the outside part. Mariano could do that, but he also had the knack of knowing when to throw that stinking 4-seamer too. That got a little bit more velocity, kept the ball up in the strike zone, changed the guy's eye levels, and so on and so forth. And he was just a dominant pitcher in the game.
All right, let's move on to our next one. It's Roger Maris.
Roger Maris. Okay. Part of the Eminem Boys along with Mickey Mantle. I mean, if you guys saw the movie by Billy Crystal, you all know about that. He set the single-season home run record prior to Mark McGwire. I still think, in my eyes, he still is the single-season home run record because of McGwire and Bond's steroid use. He still has the American League single-season home run record. He All-Star in 1960, 61. He, of course, won the World Series in 61 and 62 with the Yankees. He was heavily booed because a lot of people wanted Mickey to win the home run battle. Maris was the one who did it. He did have the whole asterisk thing because he had more games than Babe Ruth. But, Roger definitely deserves to be mentioned to go on the Mount Rushmore for the Yankees.
Kevin, what you got any thoughts there on Roger Maris?
I mean, his stats are, I mean, they're good. And he still holds the American League record, you said, right, Brad?
Yes.
For home runs.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he batted a 260. I mean, that's kind of average, mediocre. But I mean, he scored 826 runs. He almost had 1,000 RBIs. And I don't really know much about Roger Maris, but 850 RBIs isn't too bad. Home runs 275, which again is mediocre. But I don't know too much about Roger Maris, to be honest with you.
Let me jump in and say one thing about Roger Maris's season when he got the 61 home runs was, I don't know if there's really been an athlete in baseball that was under so much pressure from his own fan base. you know, just to have it. I mean, they were never booing him for two reasons. First off, like you said, Bradley, they wanted Mickey Mantle to win that record, and they wanted to preserve, you know, Babe Ruth's, you know, Bambino legacy record too, you know, and it was like, man, the guy couldn't get any love anywhere, you know, and he was still able to break that record, which is, I mean, they made a movie out of that 61, and I mean, you know, when you watch it, it really brings home to life just how, you know, how much that was such an uphill battle for him.
Like Mattingly, he's not in the Hall of Fame. So it's, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But Sid, you've been in some high pressure situations, but were you ever booed by your home fans like Roger Maris was?
Oh, I had many a times where I was booed by. Absolutely. I mean, that was a given. I mean, you know, and I don't think that there's too many players when they're going through a little slump that aren't booed by their, you know, and especially in Philadelphia, especially in New York, and especially in San Francisco. I mean, you know, some of the worst places to be playing a baseball game, because I mean, they will let you have it.
Does he still have the home run record to you?
I would say that, I mean, I've always continued to give Hank Aaron the all-time home run record just because of what was said there with the steroid juice. Because I mean, without the steroid juice, who knows if they would have ever gotten to 70 some home runs in the year. And at the same time, who knows how many more years they had to play that could have got hurt, you know, with that steroid juice. And so I will always give Hank Aaron the all-time home run lead. And you know, as far as Roger in the American League or both leagues, you know, that's hard to say. I mean, I'm not going to sit and say somebody couldn't have hit 60, 62, 63, but certainly a monumental task.
Different time too, you know, different balls and bats. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a lot harder to hit with a bat back then, compared to the bats they have now.
I don't, you know, that's one thing that I don't know if I would agree with. I mean, as far as the bats back then, I mean, you know, they were logs. I mean, and they were just as hard. The bats that they used back then were just as hard. Now, yes, they probably didn't have the thinner grips. I mean, it allowed more whip on the bat and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I mean, those guys were using 35, 36 ounce bats that obviously were a little bit more dense in the ball. The biggest thing to me would have been the baseballs. I mean, the baseballs, you know, today are so much more livelier than
They're juiced.
were back then.
The balls are juiced today. You can say it. You either strike out or you hit a home run today. So
That's exactly correct.
all right, let's move on to Whitey Ford, the chairman of the board. That's another great Yankee nickname. You know, sadly, he just passed away last month on October 8th. But a little bit about Whitey. He's pitched game one of the World Series a record 8 times. And he has a record of 33.2 scoreless innings pitched in the World Series. He holds the Yankees record for wins with 236 starts, strikeouts. He's got 1,956, and shutouts. He's got 45 of them. He's won the Cy Young Award, led the league in ERA twice. He also led the league in wins 3 times in a season. You know, and he missed some time because he served 2 years in the Army in Korea. So that was 2 years serving our country that, you know, his stats could have got up there. He probably would have been a lot closer to that magic mark of 300 wins for a pitcher, which is just, you know, guaranteed. You know, you live in infamy there. After you know, he became the Yankees pitching coach afterwards. He was actually a pitching coach while he was still playing for them. And then coached many years after his retirement with them. In 2015, it was said he was the greatest living Yankee legend. Sporting News ranks him as the 52nd greatest player of all time. He's a 10-time All-Star, 6 World Series titles. His stats would have been even better, and this is a kind of a little known fact, but his manager, Casey Stengel, who actually almost made tonight's list, he actually hurt Whitey's stats because he would save him to pitch against the better teams even though it would be his turn in the rotation. So he wouldn't get to pitch against teams that weren't as good. So he always had to pitch against the better competition. So, and then, just a little bit off the field, he also was on The Simpsons, like Don Mattingly earlier. And, he even acted with Pierce Bronson in Remington Steele. So he's had a little bit of a career there outside of baseball. Let's see, Brian, you got anything on Whitey Ford you want to throw in?
I mean, it's just when you think about him, I can't think of many other guys who were like the ace of one franchise for so long. I mean, he just dominated that role for so long, and like you said, the leadership that he showed to the other pitchers. He was thought his technique and his teaching abilities were thought so well that he became the pitching coach later.
If anybody on this show is going to know about good pitching, it's going to be Sid Bream. You played with Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, John Schmaltz, Steve Avery. I think you were with Drabek for a while too in Pittsburgh, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, Cy Young's out the wazoo between those guys. How does Whitey hang in there with them?
I mean, I mean, again, just like it was said, I mean, as far as all the years that he was a number one starter, on a team, to me, Whitey Ford, I mean, was one of those individuals that when you went out on the field with him on the mound, you had a great chance of winning the ball game. You had confidence that you were going to come out with a win, and when you have the confidence of your team doing that. And then you have to be one of those guys. I mean, you put on the list for top of the list out of all these guys that you're talking about.
Absolutely. Every time he went out there, he's actually ranked 5th all time in win percentage. So you think how many pitchers have pitched in baseball through the years. That's amazing to be 5th all time. Either Kevin or Brad, either one of you just want to add anything on Whitey?
Didn't the Yankees retire his jersey too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then he was also a Grammy Award-winning musician. Everlast released a CD named after him. It was Whitey Ford Sings the Blues.
That's not as good as Reggie Jackson trying to kill the Queen. But all right, let's move on to our last player. That's going to be Yogi Berra.
All right, so Yogi Berra, he probably has a good argument to be on the first Mount Rushmore, to be honest with you. He played catcher for the Yanks, took on a manager and coach role later on as well, but he played 19 seasons in the MLB. Every single season was with the Yankees except for one. And I believe that last one was with the Mets. He was like part coach, part player for the one season. He was an 18-time All-Star, won 10 World Series championships as a player. That is more championships, seasons, or wins than any other player in MLB history. Career batting average 285, which is pretty good for a catcher, 358 home runs. Batted in over 1,400 runs, 1,400 plus RBIs. He's one of only 6 players to win the American League Most Valuable Player 3 times. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest catchers to ever play in the history of the MLB. He was elected into the Hall of Fame in '72. Berra was a power hitter, strong defensive catcher. He appeared as a player coach, like I had mentioned. In every one of the 13 World Series that the Yankees played in, between 47 and 81, Berra was either a player or a coach. So he had a hand in every single World Series appearance for the Yankees between those years. They retired his number in '72. The Yankees did, which Hall of Famer Bill Dickey was one of the people that mentored Berra, and that's where he got his number. And they actually honored both Berra and Dickey when they retired that number. Berra showed he had crazy physical endurance by catching an entire 22-inning, 7-hour game against the Detroit Tigers. He caught for all 22 innings for a 7-hour game. That is insane. He was named to the MLB All-Century team, voted by the fans in 1999. 98, Berra appeared number 40 on the Sporting News list for 100 greatest players. When it came down to MVP voting, between 50 and 57, he never finished lower than 4th in the voting. between those years, 1950 and 57. He received MVP votes in 15 consecutive seasons, tied with Barry Bonds and only second to Hank Aaron's 19 straight seasons for having MVP support. From 49 to 55, he was on a team filled with stars. You know, he played with Mantle, he played with DiMaggio, but it was Berra who led the Yankees those seasons in RBIs for 7 consecutive seasons.
Oh.
He was kind of like the underdog player. His stature, he was only 5'7". He was a small guy, but people I think took that for granted, and I don't know why, because he played amazing. Stats are great. You know, off field. Before going to the Yankees, he actually served in World War II. He was at the beaches in Normandy as a gunner's mate. So I mean, this man, I can't say enough good things about him. He should probably be on Mount Rushmore 1, to be honest with you. You know, he's known for his yogiisms, as you will. You know, 2 popular ones: a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. It ain't over until it's over. I've actually said that. I didn't even know that it came from him. But I say that all the time when I'm in games and we're losing, you know. And then some of the funny ones, he was talking about a restaurant. And he's like, oh, nobody ever goes there anymore. And then he paused and was like, it's always too crowded. Like, so he had those funny sayings. Like, he was a funny, quirky guy, but he was definitely dangerous behind the plate.
Sid, in your opinion, is he the greatest catcher of all time?
You know, I will just say this, Michael. I mean, I know Yogi truthfully from all his statements, and I didn't realize how great of a catcher he was until I just heard all those stats. I mean, and that's the truth. I mean, I always heard of Yogi being such a great player, but I never knew what he did. I mean, until I just heard all those stats right there, and you know, I don't know what, you know, again, you also have to take into consideration, you know, what was his throw out rate at second base and so on and so forth. And I don't know what those were, but I mean, just listening to his stats as far as hitting is concerned, I mean, man, I tip my hat to him. I mean, he was a phenomenal baseball player.
We live in offensive times. You know, that's all people look at anymore is offense. Fielding's like so overrated anymore.
But you think of Johnny Bench. I mean, being so offensive, but I mean, Johnny Bench was also the guy that, I mean, his throw out rate at second base was one of the best.
It's like
not
Pudge.
the best. Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, again, you think of the catcher, to me, I mean, is one of the, if not the, other than the pitcher and maybe shortstop, the catcher is one of the top positions on the team, being able to handle pitchers, you know, being a psychologist with the pitchers, you know, being able to frame the ball, making sure that the pitcher's not out there shaking off his pitches. He knows what that pitcher's thinking all the time, putting down the right pitch and so on and so forth. So I mean, there's a lot of other things that goes into, to me, a catcher than just his offense. I mean, and throwing guys out. I mean, it's also all those other things. And it certainly sounds like Yogi, I mean, being in the game that long, was certainly one of those individuals that had the confidence of his pitchers and also did it offensively as well.
Yeah, you have to assume he called a good game because the Yankees were winning every year. Brian or Brad, either one of you want to add anything on Yogi? I know there's really nothing negative out there about this guy, so.
I mean, just probably if you're looking at all these guys and maybe even throw in the guys that we put on the Mount Rushmore, was there anybody had more of like a funnier kind of character that stuck out, or somebody, you know, that you would remember for that? I don't think so. I mean, I know Babe Ruth was a character too, but I think even Yogi would have him beat.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we go into our vote tonight, we're going to do our trivia question. So trivia question for a prize, got to be a member of the Legacy Battle Facebook group to win. So please join prior winners. You guys are still ineligible. You got to answer all parts of the question and throw your answers in the comments section. According to the movie Bull Durham, who is the all-time minor league home run leader? How many home runs did he hit? And what is a good wedding gift to give according to the pitching coach? So just throw your answers in the comment section. And if you win, we'll get you a prize mailed out. All right, let's move on to our vote. How we're going to do this tonight is we can't vote for a player that we represented. So that throws a little wrinkle into it there. And so all of us will pick one. Sid, unfortunately, pressure on you. We're going to have you pick your 4. And it can be one of the ones we picked or whatever, but you'll get your own 4. So Kevin, you're in my top left corner, so let's start with you.
I mean, we got a lot of good players here. I'm gonna have to go with Mariano Rivera. I mean, that man, when he came up to close the game, I mean, you pretty much knew it was almost a guarantee the Yankees were gonna go away with the win, and he was gonna get the save. His pitching was unbelievable. 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Great guy off the field too. I know he had some mishaps down in Panama, but overall, the dude was a great player, great guy off the field, and I definitely think his stats are well deserving to be on Mount Rushmore.
Okay, I'm gonna take Yogi Berra. Everything you said, Kevin, I know he's a great player on the field, but as Brian mentioned, his character alone puts him on a Mount Rushmore for me. I mean, his quotes are everywhere. They were even used in Rocky Balboa, Rocky 6 or whatever they call it, Rocky Balboa. You know, they made a joke of that. It ain't over till it's over, you know, coming from the 70s and something like that. So he's just such a character, such a great baseball player. Everything you hear about him, he was just a kind-hearted, good man. And he just always smiled every time you see him on camera. The guy was smiling, you know, he had the big ears, and, you know, he just even kind of looked like a character, just an all-around great guy. So, Brad, let's go to you next.
I got to go with number 2, Derek Jeter. By far, again, I got to watch him play, again, being a fan of the team that played them a lot, that was the hated team. And he was great, a great player overall. He definitely belongs on this one.
Okay. Brian.
Well, I mean, you guys all took some really good players. This is difficult, but I would think I'm going to go with Whitey Ford. Just so consistent, almost like a lunch pail type player, but to be the ace for that long, to be involved in all those championships, just to be that constant during that era, you know, in the 50s and 60s there, it was tremendous. So I'm going to go with Whitey Ford.
All right. So the panelists, second Mount Rushmore is Derek Jeter, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, Mariano Rivera. Sid Bream, let's hear your 4.
Well, I would say this. I mean, guys, I mean, you nailed it on the head. I mean, and I would say this. Up until I heard Yogi Berra's stats, he was not in my Mount Rushmore. I mean, but you know, hearing that, I mean, I had actually Don Mattingly in there before him, but hearing his stats today, you know, my number 1 was Mariano Rivera. My number 2 was Derek Jeter. But now I might have to change all that and put a little Yogi Berra first or second, Mariano Rivera first or second, Derek Jeter, and Whitey Ford was my last one. I mean, I you know, with the consistency of Whitey Ford, the leadership, I just have to put him in there as being one of those guys you have to put on Mount Rushmore too.
Okay, awesome. So he agrees with us. That makes us look good. The professional agrees with us. That's great. All right, let's move into our Q&A. Kevin, go ahead, start us up.
All right. So, I mean, I grew up, you know, I'm still a Pirates fan, even though they're, you know, again, one of the worst teams in the league. But, you know, I watched you play when I was a kid. How was it
Thanks for making
playing?
me feel old there, big guy.
I'm probably not as young as you think I am, though. But how was it playing for the Pirates in, like, you know, the early 90s, you know, late 80s, like with Bonds and Slike and Bonilla was there. What was it like playing with those guys and then locker room and everything?
Well, we had, again, I came in and I was traded over in 1985 to Bill Madlock. Cecil Espy, R.J. Reynolds, and myself came over. And, as you know, and if you remember, we were terrible in 1986. I think we lost 103 ball games, but at that time they brought in Sid Thrift and Jim Leland. Sid Thrift being our general manager, Jim Leland being our manager, and from that point on, they started to put these additions onto our team as Bobby Bonilla, Barry Bonds, Van Slyke, Andy, not Michael Lavalier, Jay Bell. I mean, and every year, it was so awesome to, that they saw the need, they saw that hole that needed to be plugged, and they brought somebody in order to fill those plugs, and so from 87, 88, we knew that we were getting close. And so, to answer your question, there was such awesome talent there, with Doug Drabeck, with, Bobby Bonilla, big old strong boy. Barry Bonds, obviously, in my opinion, taking away the steroid aspect of it all, probably one of the most dominant players there was in the game back then. And then Andy Van Slyke, great ball player, hitter wise, but as far as the outfield was concerned, he could run them down with anybody that you want to put out there. I don't care who you're talking about, Willie Mays, Otis Nixon, whoever you want to put out there, Marquise Grissom. He was one of the best, and also throwing out guys at the plate or throwing out guys and running to third or wherever he needed to throw the ball. I'm just thankful in 1992 the base hit wasn't hit out to him; it was hit out to Barry Bonds, because if it was hit to Andy, I would have probably been out by about 30 feet.
Barry threw that Scott Norwood out there field goal, like wide left or wide right or whatever.
Now let's not get too, Barry's throw was not that bad, okay? Today's guys, can hardly get the ball to second base for the most part.
That's true.
Barry's was a one-hopper just up the line, and, so you got to give him a lot of credit too, but my speed took over in that instance, and I just blew past his ball.
Well, I know all the guys are going to be asking you a lot of baseball questions, so I'm going to ask you a different question. I was hoping you could tell me, I know you're a part of it, the Christian Athlete International program. Like, what can you tell us about that?
Well, Christian Sports International, it started back in 1992 and in the Pittsburgh area, but it was basically designed for, they would go out and do baseball clinics for kids, bring individuals in to instruct the kids, but then their overwhelming theme was to tell them about a relationship with Jesus Christ, which I am so much a part of. And but over the years, Christian Sports International is not only branched out from Pittsburgh now, but it's all over the place. It's out in California in the bikers world, and it's soccer, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's hunting. They have a men's program now, trying to get men to be men, trying to be the people they're supposed to be in their families, and so on and so forth. And, something that's so desperately needed in our world today is for families to be where there's, the families to come together and be a family. And so I'm so happy to be a part of Christian Sports International. It's done a great job. I think it's seen over, in that time frame, it's seen over 650,000 kids in their clinics and so on and so forth. So, it's really doing a great job of being a positive impact for kids and teaching them to be men and girls of, boys and girls of character and integrity, but also sharing with them about the love of Jesus and hoping that they'll take up a relationship with Jesus Christ as well.
It's a great cause. I hope everybody will check out that website of theirs and donate. I know I've donated on there. Just a really good program.
Thanks,
Brad, go ahead.
Sid, I got a question. What is your opinion on baseball today compared to the era that you played in?
To me, baseball today is a selfish baseball. It's It is not about team. It is all about, me getting my hits. Not again, and I share that in regards to, we already talked about it. Home runs, you either hit a home run or you strike out, and if you hit your 25, 30 home runs, you consider you had a great year. But you struck out 250 times as well. You had a guy at second base with nobody out. You don't care about getting them over to third base. I mean, for the most part. Now, there are some people that still do it, but I mean, for the most part, analytics say, go ahead and hit the ball, but you're letting out the team aspect of it all. I mean, I share the example of Terry Pendleton in 1992 when he was a batting champion for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, I saw Terry numerous times with the guy on second base would drop a bunt down to get the guy to third base, sacrifice himself for one reason and one reason only, to give David justice, say, hey, David, I trust you to get this run in. And, today you don't find that. I mean, it's all about what I can do for myself. And if I help the team, great. And that part of the game, I'm just not thrilled with at all.
Ryan.
Well, you're looking through your career. You played for Tommy Lasorda, Jim Leland, and of course, Cox there, and Bobby Cox with Atlanta. What can you tell us about those great managers and how they related to you, and how, like, their different styles?
Tommy, he made a lot of great decisions. I mean, I was truthfully not a big fan of Tommy, but I mean, the one thing that I can give him credit for, he had an intuition about making calls. I mean, bringing people into the game whenever it might have not have been popular, and so on and so forth. And he really made some great decisions. Jim Leland, by far in my time of the game of baseball, the best manager that I played for, was generally so far ahead of every manager that he was up against. And at the same time, he was a great psychologist, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever you want to say. I mean, he understood when you needed to have a kick in the pants, and he also understood when you needed to have somebody tell a joke to you, get you to relax. And he was a great motivator. But like I said, I mean, he was just so far ahead of every manager that I ever played against, or that was on the other team, as far as making his decisions, that I give him the most credit of all, as far as my coaching staff. And then Bobby was just one of those. As long as you were giving it 100%, you were okay with him, and also looking the part. Bobby was not one of those that, I mean, you could go out there and have your hat turned on the wrong way, or have your socks, in a different fashion. You needed to look like the baseball player when you went out onto that field. I mean, not looking like a goofball. And Bobby really respected the game in that way. But he is also one of those, like I said, I mean, as long as you were busting your tail, you were in good shape with him. I mean, but if you slacked off, he was going to let you have it, and let you have it good.
Do you have time for a few more? Or?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
All right, we'll do one more each. Kevin, go ahead.
Before I get into my next question, I see that you had you were a batting coach for the State College Spikes in 2008.
Yeah.
I actually was at Penn State in 2008. And
why didn't you come down and see me?
What? I didn't know you were there.
He was obsessed with Joe Paterno. He didn't know nothing other than that.
But anyway, so I saw that you attended Liberty University, and your son went there too. And then you played some college ball in summer of 1980, and then you were drafted in 81 by the Dodgers. Was there a team that you were kind of like hoping that would kind of draft you, and like what were you thinking, around the draft day? Like, were you excited, nervous?
I mean, in all truthfulness, I mean, being at Liberty University at that time frame, I mean, I was just actually telling somebody today, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. the Dodgers has showed the most interest in me as far as in my college days. I mean, and you know, I hit over 430 every year in college. You know, with an NAIA school, we were fifth in the nation 2 years in a row. But I wasn't real sure who was going to draft me at that time. I'm thankful that the Dodgers did, because back then the Dodgers, I mean, were well considered the best minor league organization in all the franchises. They really took care of their minor league players, with you know, all of them having their own buses, you know, private buses and so on and so forth. AAA at one point in time had their own planes. But they took care of their players, unlike a lot of other franchises. And so you know, there was always the statistic. I mean, if you were in the Dodger organization in single A, you had a 25% chance to make it to the big leagues, where other teams was 10%. If you got the double A, there was a 50% chance that you would make it to the big leagues, 25% in another. And if you got to the triple A, you know, the chances of you getting to the big leagues were so much greater than if you were in another franchise back then. I mean, they were so well respected. And so, you know, I guess to answer your question, I'm glad I was drafted where I was. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't going to play for the Los Angeles Dodgers, because Tommy Lasorda loved Greg Brock, who was the first baseman at the time, and Al Campana's the general manager, like Franklin Stubbs, was right behind me. And I knew I wasn't going to play for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it was a blessing for me to get to the Pittsburgh Pirates, even though they were the worst team in baseball at that time. It still gave me an opportunity to get to the big leagues and start my career.
Brad, go ahead.
Real quick, Sid, what inspired your slide in 1992, the one that's behind Michael right now?
What inspired my slide? Well, trying to be fast enough so I would have been out.
Yeah.
I mean, good grief. I mean, you know, again, going back to that, I've often said, I mean, I shouldn't have been on second base. I mean, Bobby Cox, even to this day, said he had nobody to play first base. Well, that wasn't the truth, because Brian Hunter, he platooned with me, and he pinched hit that inning. And Francisco Cabrera, that got the big hit, he also played first base. So our big thing, if we were to tie that ball game up, was who was going to play second base, because Mark Lemke was pinched hit for in the seventh inning, and then Rafael Belliard was pinched hit for in the ninth inning. And so that we had nobody to play second base. And so a pitcher could have easily been out there at second base for me, and probably been into the dugout by the time I got to home plate. But I was just able to make things exciting by doing that. And as you guys know, I mean, it's still ranked in the top 5, top 10 to top 5 as far as most exciting plays in Major League Baseball history today, just because I made it so close.
Yeah. Brian, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot is said about that play in the '92 NLCS. But going back before that, when you came to bat in that ninth inning against a tired Doug Drabick, and you were able to draw a walk, can you talk about what was going through your mind during that at bat?
Well, I often say, I mean, I go out on the speaking trail quite a bit just because of that play, but the time before, I'd hit a double off of Doug. And, you know, so, and at the same time, I've told people all along that when we were in Pittsburgh, and even at that time, my wife and I were literally godparents to his kids. I mean, you know, our families were really, really close when we were in Pittsburgh. And so I've often said, I mean, can you imagine what his thoughts were going through his head, because he walked me on 4 straight pitches. Never gave me a chance to swing the bat at bat. And can you imagine what was going through his head, saying, man, I can't let the godparent of my kids beat me in this game. And, you know, but yeah, hey, Doug just pitched a masterful ball game. You know, it's sad to think of such a big game like that. And, you know, it was one of those that he lost the ball game. And, but what a great guy, what a great pitcher. And, you know, I'm thankful that we came back and won the ball game, obviously, but but it was certainly tough to see him go down in defeat at that point.
You had mentioned the other first baseman options there, but I mean, you were by far the best fielding first baseman out of that three, so they had to leave you in my opinion. But
well, I mean, again, in a situation like that, you don't take a chance on somebody getting a base hit, or getting a base hit and making sure you have your top glove in at first base. I mean, Brian Hunter platooned with me all year long. I mean, so I mean, it's not like he couldn't have played first base. Yes, I really and truly believe that I was the best first baseman to be playing. I mean, not only there but any place. I mean, I felt as though I did a great job, but you always give yourself the best opportunity to win a ball game. And if Frankie wouldn't have gotten the base hit, then hey, you put Brian Hunter out there and you live with the choice. But again, the play wouldn't have been close if they would have had one of the pitchers out there. And but like I said, I'm thankful that I was there. It's given me a platform to go around and do a lot of speaking, and it's kept me in people's minds. And that's why I'm actually in Atlanta right now, because even 28 years later, people still think about that play, and it's given me opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I wasn't there.
we'll get you out of here with this question. I'm going to take it back to 1986 when you set the record for assists.
Yep.
I know Keith Hernandez won the Gold Glove that year, but
Nope. Glenn Davis did.
It was Davis. Oh,
Glenn Davis won it.
well, that makes me feel even more that you should have got it. So
Yeah.
I was wondering your thoughts about that. Like, did you feel you kind of deserved it that year?
I mean, again, it wasn't something that I was just losing sleep over by any means. But if you look at raw stats as far as fielding is concerned, what the Gold Glove's supposed to be all about, I mean, I certainly should have gotten the Gold Glove that year. But Glenn Davis obviously was a bigger home run threat, bigger bat that way, and so I guess the Gold Glove, they take in more consideration some of the other things other than just the glove itself. But again, I prided myself in my fielding. I mean, I gave my guys the best opportunity not to get errors, and loved to charge on a pitcher when he was bunting the ball, and if he made a bad bunt, I'd throw him out. I loved to turn double plays, and that was what I took a lot of pride in, and probably was known more for my glove at the end of my career than I was for my bat. But at the same time, loved the game, loved being a part of it, and I was so thankful God gave me that chance.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate it. I mean, hearing about the run that broke three of our hearts, because we all grew up in Pittsburgh. We all live down in Tampa now, but
it broke the Pirates franchise for the next 20-some years.
Well,
that's true.
And I think we all know, Kevin. I mean, that was going to be going on. Everybody knew that they were going to start breaking up that group, and it's too bad. I mean, and again, I live in Pittsburgh, and every year I'm hoping and praying that they can put a team together to do some contesting in the National League. But we got to get somebody in there that understands the game of baseball and will give them a chance.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thank you again for coming on. We want to thank everyone who's going to watch the show. We appreciate that too. Remember to join the Facebook group and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can get shows earlier on the YouTube channel than what you will on the Facebook group page. So keep that in mind. So we'll see you all next time. Good night. God bless.